Welcome to In the Mix, all things about business to business marketing, maximising opportunities in your customer journeys to help you think more about creating opportunities to impress through both physical and digital channels. Hello, I'm Stuart from Hadprint and this is Andy McAteer.
Hiya.
Okay, we're both at different ends of the marketing spectrum. I'm a print professional, Andy is a digital marketing specialist. So you could actually say that we probably our paths don't cross that often, but equally perhaps they should actually start to be crossing a bit more often. Let's unpack and see where things go. I think the first thing really is, has marketing suddenly jumped on a bit of a bandwagon to be trendy and digital seems to be absolutely it? Or is actually there space for the proper marketing mix, as they used to call it?
Yeah, I think with the rise of sort of specialist agencies, you're sort of looking at pay-per-click agencies, SEO agencies, I think people see that and it's big, it's trendy. You see your big names, sort of like your ASOS and your Pretty Little Thing, that have sort of risen with the likes of Love Island, and people see what that can do in terms of the revenue that can drive. And I think in terms of where that takes marketing, is it's probably pushing it more down a digital route in terms of what brands and what companies see as that's going to get them a direct return on investment.
So is it aspirational or is it actually driven by strategy, or do people just look at going, okay, I want to do a bit of this?
My personal view on that is probably it's a case of I want a bit of that. I want to be that big name. But I think the fact is, unless you are the likes of these big companies, you've got the big following, you've got the ideal product, you're not going to be up there just yet, especially probably not in a B2B market.
So taking that B2B market, how many businesses actually properly have the old marketing plan and actually almost have a sort of like a pipeline, a journey, or actually is it just a case that they're just going at it?
I think there's a balance of the two. In terms of the companies I've come across, it's really key for us to sort of direct people down a proper marketing strategy that includes, different funnels to sort of get the audience in the right place and send them the right message at the right time. But I think it's quite a misconception, I don't know, maybe, that it's marketing's easy, anybody can do marketing, and social media is the solution.
I think we all know that there's actually more to it than that, and I think the interesting thing is that there is certain bits of terminology that floats around in the marketing and sort of like the worlds of getting customers on board to actually understand you, your product, your service, how you work. Do too many businesses almost go at it in the sense that they just fire off in every single channel, and actually the whole thing about connecting and building is sort of missed?
Yeah, I think it's sort of quite evident at the minute with sort of the rise of TikTok. The amount of brands that you sort of hear from that say, oh, so-and-so says we need to be on TikTok. And I think even looking back, people who said, I need to be on Facebook, I need to be on Twitter, I need to be on LinkedIn. And I don't think there's really that consideration that, wait a minute, is your audience actually on that platform? And is that where you're going to get your audience to convert, or to sort of, can you use that channel to get them to do what you want them to do? And are they there?
I think we've sort of experienced through the COVID years of actually everything being digital, it's probably reinforced it a lot more.
Yeah.
And perhaps we've forgotten that actually when you look at the customer journey sort of flow, you tend to have both the digital and also the physical elements of how people engage.
Absolutely.
And I think there was the whole rush after sort of COVID of people wanting to be in the same room as each other. And now they're sort of asking the questions of, actually, I've got a time issue here, I need to engage more. How do I find that time to strike the balance between doing it on a Teams meeting or actually being there in person? The whole thing about, I know I probably missed it over COVID, was the whole thing of watching people's body language.
Yeah.
And actually you learn more, you engage more, you're having a more meaningful conversation. And I think the challenge from my perspective is the digital's great, but I struggle to remember what I saw on Facebook this morning, LinkedIn yesterday, or even what I put on Twitter the other day.
Yeah.
So how the heck does the social really work? And it's there in the background. Is it familiarity? And then it makes you ask the question of how many touch points does it actually take?
Yeah, I think, one thing that I'm a big believer in is that social is never really going to be a sort of acquisition channel, as it were. And it's going to be more at sort of the top of the funnel, and sort of, you're getting those people who are just looking, they're sort of interested broadly in the topic that you offer, or maybe they've come across you somewhere else, they're going to go and check out your website, they'll check out your social media. And I think that comes back in terms of, sort of firing onto every platform. There's no point you using every platform if, one, you're not going to post on there regularly, and two, you're not going to post the right content on there regularly. Because I think, if somebody's checking you out and you've got a Facebook page and a Twitter page and a LinkedIn page, but your LinkedIn page hasn't been touched for the last 3 years, but you're still an open business, you still use Facebook all the time, the moment they go to LinkedIn and see the last post was 3 years ago, that's it, I think you've lost them.
But I think, I'm a big believer in that whole customer journey thing, and I know from our own experience trying to sell our business that we need to be sort of like getting impressions in places which just have that longevity. And I know we as a print house, we actually sell with print because I believe in actually getting our product out there to actually get it there. And people go, well, you're a print house. Well, yeah, but I still do the social. We run a reasonable website. It's not perfect, but it gets there, it does a job. It's better than having nothing. And I think the whole thing is about how many impressions does it take. And I know I often use, when I'm talking to clients, the example like Screwfix or Lakeland. And when they do the mail out, it's there to actually be the springboard or the trigger even to get people to do other things. And I think that is quite a savvy sort of mode about actually it's here to actually trigger, start, move on. It's the call for action. And I know you write copy for social and copy for other points. Getting those words right to be emotive, to actually fire, is something quite an art form, because to get people to go, yeah, I really want to go here and do this now, when they're in the middle of anything. And I know you said to me, people scroll the height of the Empire State Building once, and it's sort of like that, and you're sort of going, okay, that's why I can't remember it, because I haven't got the capacity to remember it. But yet, to me, something physical, dare I say it, the banner, and there's always banners on the bridge outside here.
Yeah.
And whether it's a piece of direct mail or anything like that, to move it online to progress it is so critical. So the whole thing that I'm probably getting to is, are we so multi-channel that all we're doing is bosh, 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 bosh? When should we actually be doing more connected? And how do we make that connected work?
Yeah, I think there's a really important point there that, the most effective marketing is when you know where your audience are and who your audience are. And by sort of funneling them, so you've sort of got your awareness, your interest, your desire and your action, if you're using different touch points and different types of marketing, use your print, use your digital, your website comes in the PR, whatever. But I think post-COVID especially, print has come on an awful lot. I think because people have got so used to scrolling Facebook, scrolling TikTok, and they're seeing all sorts of adverts, that they sort of don't trust in it anymore, or don't trust in it as much. And I think that print element now sort of adds that extra dimension, and that's
Is that
sort
about
of
authenticity?
Yeah, I think so. And sort of it by you sort of sending a direct mail piece out or some lumpy mail or whatever, it sort of gives the audience that trust. They can trust in you if you've invested in sort of print marketing. Whereas I think people seeing the news about how many times sort of scam artists have used Facebook and things like that,
Or even WhatsApp now.
or even WhatsApp, yeah. And I'm obviously, as a digital marketer, I'm a big believer in sort of Facebook and all sorts of stuff like that. But I think there's definitely got to be an element of joined up thinking and making sure that you've thought about the customer journey to get them to convert, and using the different sort of marketing channels that are out there.
So what you're alluding to there is, obviously we need to do more that actually triggers, fires, moves on, the proper sort of omni-channel marketing. However, what scares people off? Is it cost? Is it lack of knowledge? Lack of examples? What?
Yeah, I think, there's a sort of a balance of all of it, I think. And I think cost is quite a scary thing for a lot of businesses, especially when it comes to marketing. And I think, it really doesn't help when the government sort of come out recently and tell people that to save money and help with the cost of living crisis, that they should reduce their marketing budget first and foremost. But I think...
Surefire way to go into a recession, that, yes.
Yeah. But I think, it's quite a scary sort of task to think, right, I'm going to invest money in, something that people can probably wrongfully perceive is not a direct return on investment. But I think, if it's done right and it gives the right message and it goes to the right landing places and sort of it directs the audience where you need to be.
What's the best examples you've seen?
I got a piece of marketing from another printer, interestingly, but I think they did a very good job in terms of they're always sending me emails, at least 2 or 3 a week. And the thing that actually made me consider doing something with them, which you'll be glad I never did in the end, but the thing that makes you think was the piece of the postcard that came in the mail. And you think, I'm a big believer in email can drive conversions. We've seen it, I've got the results for it. But that print, again, adds that extra element to it. And it was joined up, it had the message on there, it had a landing page that was appropriate. It was using sort of the right technology to drive it. So it was showing products that I was interested in and not that were just generic and that anybody could be interested in.
So relevance is king.
100%.
So obviously, we're probably at two polar ends of where people think on marketing. What are the blockers now? How do we overcome these blockers and move forward?
I think it's about education. I think it's about us as marketers educating, sort of not only businesses and companies themselves, but other marketers. Because I think, in some of these big agencies that are sort of quite sort of the down one road, as it were, it's quite easy to think SEO is the way to go because it's going to get me to the top of Google. And in reality, it changes all the time. Pay-per-click's the way to go, but then it's all about the budget. So I think it's a case of educating marketers that there's a strategic way to do things, and that you can use different elements of it. It's about reminding them that print's there and what print can do, and it's about using the technology that exists to then make that trackable.
I sort of look at what's been around as technology, and you look at the likes of XMPie. XMPie is the personalisation software. It just doesn't drive print, it drives online presences, it uses a back-end database to actually generate something called PURLs or personal URLs, which obviously could be on a QR code, which means that it can actually connect and deliver a seamless experience relevant to that recipient. And yet we so little see it in this country, and that technology has been around for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And it makes me look at where the other side of the pond, sort of in the US and Canada, and knowing what they do over there, and look at what we're doing here and going, actually there is an awful lot more we could be doing. But I do wonder whether it's budget, lack of knowledge, or is it, as you said, the whole mix. And I think even for SMEs, it can be done now, because you've got the likes of HubSpot, which is an entry-level CRM that you can start amassing that sort of like critical data on. And a good CRM doesn't cost the earth now.
No.
And it means that a business with, let's say, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 salespeople could actually be generating a very good, stable list of good customers, warm and cold. Well, the ones you're going to want to work on are the cold and the warm, because your good customers are already engaging with you. That's a totally different journey. And I think it's how do we build those relationships to actually not just encourage B2B growth, but actually growth in our communities, and accept that we need to be more creative. I think creative thinking isn't quite where it was. There is the whole thing of, You look at a certain marketeer in Manchester, it said, what did it take to get seen in Manchester? And he ended up in the buff on a billboard. Now, you look at that and you go, that's taking it to an extreme. But is everything so mass market now that to do anything differently and have that creative edge is now the challenge?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, it's so easy, again, with the rise of socials to sort of jump on trends. And, the thing is there's barriers in a lot of places that mean those trends can't be jumped on as quickly. But again, it's about, that goes back to authenticity. There's a lot of people jump on trends that aren't relevant to their business. And, they might get 30, 40, 50, 60 likes and more, but those likes aren't their audience. There's sort of a wider audience that aren't really interested in what they've got to offer and will never buy from them. So I think the big picture is looking at the customer journey and really digging in to find out who the audience is and where they're more likely to respond and at what level they're likely to respond. And I think, like we've said about the messaging, Seth Godin in his book says about the messaging, you don't try and sell somebody a drill bit, you try and sell them the fact that they've succeeded in putting up a wall. So I think it's about getting that messaging, especially at the conversion stage, to sort of try and push them down that route.
At the end of the day, how you get the message across doesn't matter. The end result counts, and I think it is very much about cumulatively bringing that together and accepting that different people engage in different ways. And if you get your mix of tools right, you can actually engage an awful lot of people because they'll enter into it at different points on the journey, and equally, providing those tools are there, they'll work it through. And I think there's a lot of opportunity, but I think we've got to harness what we have to really hit the mark.
Yeah, 100%.
Thank you, Andy.
No problem, thank you.
Appreciated your time.